So, this morning there was a Pokemon Direct which had a bunch of news about the new expansion and crap I don't care about, but we got a side game for Pokemon. Everyone roll out the red carpets. We have the remake of Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Red and Blue Rescue Team, which is kind of scary, but at the same time, I'm kind of down with it. Not down with the price, but we'll get into why. Now, as we talk about Mystery Dungeon, it is purely a more accessible turn-based encounter most of the time, but at the same time, nowadays, it's kind of more niche, if that makes sense. Meaning that a lot of people can pick it up and enjoy it, at least the beginning portions, but when it comes to the latter half of Mystery Dungeon games, they can be quite difficult. Not saying it is, but for people that maybe this is their first turn-based, you might want to stay away. Now let's get into actually how the remake feels. So I went in, made my character, and it's probably showing as now, depending on how I cut this. But you do the same type of questionnaire that you did back in the original game, which is pretty good. And you end up answering a bunch of questions to get your starter. I originally gave him a Chop. I go with Totodile, and then I pick Cyndaquil as my partner, and I go on an adventure. And basically everything is the same besides a few little things. One of the biggest changes is the attacking system. When I was playing the demo, I don't know if I was doing it wrong, but there was no way of basic attacking. And what does that mean? It means you weren't using a Pokemon move. In the original Mystery Dungeon, you can use a move that was just empty. It wasn't struggle, it was just an empty move. It was kind of like a basic like tackle or something without being tackle. There was no PP limit on it, and above all, you could just keep doing it, and it allows you to not have to focus on using a certain move, which was bad and good for the game. It really depends on how you want to talk about it. But when it comes down to the ultimate, like, how I feel about it, I don't really miss it. Mostly because later Mystery Dungeon games, but it is something to take note of as a change that maybe could be negative in your mind or not. Linking of moves is still, it's easier than it was in my opinion. It's explained more readily than it was in the original Mystery Dungeon as long as you read. Everything looks pretty solid, more streamlined sometimes. What else? And I guess overall the gameplay stays the same, which, I mean, that's all you need. I love Mystery Dungeon, so I'm good with it. The visual aspect of it is fantastic when it comes to the overall just graphics and type of art style that is being represented. It is, above all, just showing that, yes, this is a facelift, but it's a very good one. I feel that this slight art style is going to hinder some Pokemon, but I don't really mind it. The only area that so far I've been irritated at is the very beginning of the game. That area looks really bad in comparison, and I really hate to even like just insult the very beginning because the rest of the game looks fine and colorful and bright and vibrant and just amazing, but that very beginning just looks, it reminds me of a washed out Winnie the Pooh. And especially if you harken back to Kingdom Hearts, the Winnie the Pooh part on the PS2, it reminds me so similarly to that it actually hurts it for me. The sound design, of course, there were of course music in the original games. It seems that most of the music's gonna be remixed, though I did hear hints of the original song in the beginning for the quiz section, though it slowly transitioned off. But above all, I do not mind anything that's gone down in the visual or audio department. Overall, very happy with that package of it. It plays well, it sounds well, and it looks pretty good. Now, when it comes down to probably the biggest fighting point I will have on this is the price. This is a 2006 game being uplifted to 2020. Now, I'm not saying that it's impossible, but you have to be willing to lower the price on this. And the fact that it's $60 really hurts it, in my opinion. It's a 2006 game through and through. There's been some improvements, more streamlined. It looks better, of course. And it maybe has a little more following now because Pokemon is bigger than it was back then due to population changes. But it's not worth $60 to me. I look at it and I see a fantastic game, mostly because it's taking what the originals had and putting them up to the graphical and sound design standards of nowadays, and then just kind of taking it and asking for $60 more. And it's how I feel about remakes that really makes it like worthwhile. Great example, Resident Evil 2. I'm a big fan of the original. I like the original more than the remake, but the remake is different enough and feels drastically different in a lot of the game. There's some parts where it's similar, but where I could see it almost being a separate game. If you change the story slightly, it would be a different game. It actually would be. That's called difference. But, and a great example of this is from Gold, Silver, and Crystal to Heart Gold, Soul Silver. Heart Gold, Soul Silver looks beautiful, sounds beautiful, and they fixed all the problems that Gold, Silver, and Crystal had with terrible pacing, terrible design choices, and just being Johto haphazardly thrown together. It really is probably the best remake I've ever played is Heart Gold, Soul Silver. Where does Mystery Dungeon kind of fall into? It doesn't really fall into those two great remakes for two different ways. Heart Gold, Soul Silver, it basically took everything that was broken and fixed it up and made it look and sound even better. It made it have that snap that you needed. Resident Evil 2, on the other hand, it changed everything to make almost a completely different game. It's not really a remake, it's more selling on the previous entry and keep going. That's what I feel anyway. Now, Mystery Dungeon, on the other hand, lacks certain qualities that I think will make it worth $60 to a lot of people. It's not that different. It has a very updated visual style, very updated sound design. It's on the Switch, which means that it's more accessible to a lot of people than, say, the GBA, which Pokemon Red Rescue Team came out on. And it's also not at the start of the DS's life cycle, which, while the DS kind of got really popular as it went, the first year or two was very rough. Now, this isn't to say that it's not flat out worth money at all. $60 is just a little high for it, and I feel that maybe as we get farther down the line when it comes down to side Pokemon games, that they're gonna become this. A lot of remakes, a lot of just shoveling for $60 each and every year if they can get away with it. And it sets a very dangerous precedent, especially when Mystery Dungeon's on the line. Mystery Dungeon has always been the fan favorite side game. You have Pokemon Mystery Dungeon, you have Pokemon Ranger, and then you have Pokemon Conquest. Those three have the three biggest fan bases, even though Conquest only had one game, which is amazing to me. Now, what I really hope this does do is maybe if the reception's good, we can see more side games. I do want to see side games. I'm not saying the price is exactly like super bad. I'm just saying for right now that $60 definitely does hurt. I know how long the game is. I played the game before. It's the same game. There might be some updates. There might be some changes. But it's the same game. There's a lot of content for $60. And it seems the updates might be worth it for someone like me who knows what this game is. Flat out. But when it comes down to side games, there's gonna be odd ones that, if they do remake it, won't really make sense. Like, for example, Pokemon Snap. Pokemon Snap, if it was remade, I think would be horrible. It's a product of its time. It would not fit, and just updating visuals is not going to work. I think you need to just make a Pokemon Snap to it in that regard. Now, I'm not saying Pokemon Snap is a bad game, it's just a product of its time. Now, Pokemon Ranger, I think, would do incredibly on the Switch console, which I think doing all the signs and maybe doing some spins, I think it would be a cool, like, just motion game, too. And then Pokemon Conquest, just give me that. That's all I want. Above all, Mystery Dungeon, I'm not super sold on it yet. March is a busy month, even though I'm not a big fan of most of those games coming out. We'll see how my wallet looks, but with what is shown so far, I think it'll be worth it if you are a big Mystery Dungeon fan like I am. If you are trying to get into the series, it's probably going to be the perfect way of doing it. Wait for a sale, though. Just please, don't waste your money on something you're unsure of. And if you hate Mystery Dungeon games, don't get this. It's the same as Red and Blue. So thank you for watching. I hope to see you guys next time in whatever I do. And above all,